Once it says we are live, and hey, welcome everybody to Unrestricted Paranormal. I'm your host, Dan Hallright. With me, as always, Drew, the man, Ellsworth McRae. Hey, Drew. I'm in
Howdy, bud.
Kalamazoo. I'm in Kalamazoo. Drew's down there in Chrysopolis. And together, we're doing a lot of paranormal things and podcasts together. We've got a special guest with us. You see that gentleman down there at the bottom screen. It's funny because had I darkened, I got gray now, had my beard been a little darker, and I had my hat off and no glasses. Well, maybe my glasses, you and I could probably pass for brothers there, Rich. We've got Rich MEYER with us. I wanted to tell him I admire him too, because he said he's sitting in his Jeep, and I am a Jeep family. Drew knows this. We have nothing but Jeeps at my house. So we are Jeep people from way back. We've been through different cars, but I swear by the Jeep. I've got a Commander. The wife's got a 97 Wrangler. I gave my Liberty to my daughter when I was done using it as an Ecto. And now she rides around a black and purple Ecto Liberty with Ghostbuster emblems on the side. It's all good. Rich is here to talk to us tonight. Now, I've been talking to Rich on and off. He reminded me not too long ago that we've been trying to touch base and talk, and I got sidetracked, and it's an out of sight, out of mind thing, but I knew Rich was out there. I wanted to talk about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the Michigan Squatch. This is the man. I've had a couple other people on who've shared their experiences, but I've been watching Rich probably the longest and his organization. But Rich, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, no worries. So you're part of what in the UP? What is it that you guys started up there?
In 2011, my dad passed away. Shortly after that, I was watching Finding Bigfoot on TV.
Yep.
Talking to my mom on the phone, and she says to me, "Well, your dad loved that show, right?" And I'm like, no, he never really said anything. She's like, "Well, yeah, that's why you guys hunted and fished in the places you did. That's why everybody else went in 2 miles and you went in 7."
Oh,
she's
Lord.
like, you remember?
Tricky dad.
Yeah. She says, you do remember him saying there's something else out there, right? I said, well, yeah, he said that all the time. She said, yeah, the something else was Bigfoot. You've been looking for Bigfoot ever since you were 5 years old, and you could get in the woods with him. I said, okay. So then I started putting some things together and thought to myself, well, I'm living in the UP now because I'm originally from Saginaw, downstate, and couldn't really find anything that was UP related to Bigfoot. So I started my own research organization, the UPBFRO, which is Upper Peninsula Bigfoot Sasquatch Research Organization. And from there, I've gone on, and I'm also an investigator for the BFRO. So I investigate their calls, I investigate my calls, and we've gone on from there. So
yeah, doing cross work. I dig it, man.
Yep.
I really dig it. And I've been wanting to talk to you for a while because my journey is somewhat similar. Now, I obviously am not active with my group looking, but I've had 2 experiences, which I'll share with you here later on in the show. I've shared them before because I think I've seen something, but I was younger, I think, when I think grew my fascination for Bigfoot. And of course, it was a show that we all came to love. Those of us who remember it being on in the day. You can still find it in rerun. You can buy seasons of it. I know that they tried to do a new version of it, and that is a show called In Search Of. And Leonard Nimoy. Yeah. And so in the 70s, when I was, we're talking 10, 11, 12 years old, people were making a lot of Sasquatch movies. I remember seeing one downstate here in Kalamazoo at the State Theater, which was about Sasquatch. And funny enough, on that same trailer, they were running back-to-back trailers. The second trailer was for this really cool thing called Star Wars. Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
So I'm dating myself. So, I watched the Sasquatch film, was fascinated by a lot of all the old reports. Then In Search Of came on. I watched that intently. I started, because we didn't have internet back then, obviously. So I started picking up books out of the library, anything to do with Native Americans and their versions and their names for it. Because around the world, there's different native cultures that have different names for this animal, this humanoid. I think it's humanoid. That's just my opinion. I'm not an expert, but I'm just sharing my opinion. And probably like you, Rich, I fell into believing it. The possibilities of the belief of it are great. And of course, in search of, we all saw the Gimlin film. And
Yep.
since then, people have analyzed it, broke it down. There have been experts who have said this, and these are some experts. Not everybody agrees, but the majority have said this is the real deal. This couldn't have been pulled off by somebody in a frickin' monkey suit and all this other nonsense. Yep. I'm a guy that believes it's a real deal. I think it looks very real. Seeing a lot of animals, as you have as a hunter too, and as a child and as an adult, there's just a natural gait and a lot of natural things about it. But let's move the show forward away from me to you. So you had your interests. So have you seen anything? Have you come across anything since you've been looking?
Well, everybody always asks me, have you seen one?
Yeah.
And for me to say that I've had what they would classify as a class A, right in your face, see one, I have to say, no, I haven't.
Okay.
But all of the other small things that have happened all add up to a bunch of really good evidence. I have a collection of footprints and handprints that we've found and that other researchers have found and given to me so that I can study them. I was 100% Bigfoot's just flesh and blood. There's nothing else to it. And then I was in Wisconsin on an expedition and I saw the red eye glow. I say eye glow because it's not the eye shine that you get when when you're out spotlighting deer and their eyes glow back yellow at you. This was no external light source, and the eyes lit up red, blinked, and lit up red again, and then moved. And it wasn't just myself that saw it. It was about 15 of us standing on a ridge looking across the gully that saw it. So there was more than, for me, that was, I went, did anybody else see those in the other end of the line? Eyes across the gully. So then I had to go through and completely rethink what I thought Bigfoot was, right, and what they could do and couldn't do.
Right. Do you think that some of the Dogman sightings, because there was Dogman before the gentleman here in Michigan did his hit song, okay? Because right, there's been a whole urban legend that's grown from that. There's been other stuff that's grown from different stories and people telling stories, but Native Americans have been reporting that from time and creation too. And I often wondered if it was a misidentification or just like people. And I asked this when we had the Olympic project on. I don't know if you're aware of that, Rich, but I had Jeff Meldrum and all those guys were on with us. Okay. And I asked them too, they're just like people. A lot of us look different. We have different hair color, different eye color, different things happen. What's to say that this culture of this animal is not the same way? So there's a possibility of misidentification. Just throwing it out.
Yeah, no, there's a very good chance of misidentification. Now, what I'm finding up here is we've got, I don't want to call them a cell or a clan or anything like that, but there's a spot north of Iron Mountain and south of Marquette where I get a majority of the reports out of that area it had a long dog type snout and it had ears on the top of its head. To me, that sounds classic Dogman. Some of them even go as far as to say it had a tail like a dog. Other spots in the UP, so. Other spots in the UP, and just outside of there, you get it was built like a linebacker. It had arms that hung down past its waist. And then I'll ask the question, did it have ears on top of its head or not? And they're like, no, I couldn't see any visible ears. So you're back to your classic Bigfoot again. Yeah, I think it's two different species. I don't think they're the same.
Okay. And I think that too. I was just throwing that question out to, to be the devil's advocate. I obviously, I'm aware of a lot of reports from Native American, and my friend Bob Penny, if any of you pick up the book, I think it's called Weird Michigan. And you can find copies right now at Barnes and Noble or any place you can get this book. He's featured in a story right down in this neck of the woods, Rich, on Silver Lake Road, which is in near Mendon and Vicksburg. And he had a run-in with something that stood up on the side of the road and looked very much, I mean, Bob will tell you that it looked like the classical dog man. And, you know, so I think that you're right. I think that there's two different species, and I think that there's two different things happening. You know, being out in the woods, probably not as much as you have been, but I've been out in the woods and the boonies, and I mean miles from anything. I've been there with some friends, family in the past. I spent a lot of summers up in Newaygo, area as a kid. And, you know, my uncles would take us out, and I mean, you know, we'd go camping for a day, and it'd take us like a good hour, 2 hours to get back to the house. And what I'm saying by that is that to think that you couldn't hide even as a person all day and never be seen, and probably somebody would come across you by accident. I think that's the biggest scenario of what really takes place. Nor all those years as hunters in my family, and Rich, you can speak to this, you know, people always bring up that whole dead body scenario. And it's like, if this is an intelligent creature, which obviously it is, because it's smart enough to stay the hell away from us, you know, which is pretty smart. And a lot of the incidents that happen, you know, might be by accident. You know, I think that they travel and maybe they carry their dead away. Maybe they go off to a different place and perish. Because, you know, even a hunter, how often would you come across, you know, dead animals and deer bones, you know, that's out in the middle of the woods? I mean, by the roadside all day long, because they're hit by cars.
Yep.
But
and that's for me, it's I equate it to a bear. I don't know if you guys have ever done any bear hunting, but when you go bear hunting, everybody expects a bear to come through the woods sounding like a D8 bulldozer.
Yeah.
And they don't. They come through almost silently, and they'll sneak right up on you.
Oh yeah, they'll have you before you know it. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then,
much like you, Rich, I had a friend that used to go up to Iron Mountain, and they would farm lodgepole pine for teepees. And they'd go up there and spend like several days cutting trees, debarking. And they said they had encountered stuff like that too. But there was a certain name that the natives up there around Iron Mountain had for it. It wasn't Sasquatch, and we're talking 20 years ago. I don't remember the name they had for it. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about up there around that area.
Yeah. And like, if you shoot a bear when you're bear hunting, they will take off and find the deepest, darkest hole they can find. We've tracked them right up underneath deadfall trees. Well, walking through, you're not going to see it unless you're tracking that blood to it.
Right.
If a Bigfoot knows it's going to die and it doesn't want to be found, it'll go bury itself in the swamp, and you won't find the bones, and the swampland is acidic, so it'll eat the bones within a year and a half, 2 years. So you got a real small window to try and figure out where they're at.
And Rich, I want to tell you, that's one of the best things I've heard yet. You know, from anybody looking into Bigfoot. I mean, I've heard it from other people, you know, a few experts, you know, from the Olympic group, but that tags it right there. There's so many different opportunities for nature to play its course, you know, in respect to this being an intelligent creature. And I think you just hit on one of the very viable explanations for sure. And I think a lot of us are getting a lot of the stuff right, and we're getting a lot of it wrong. I don't know where I stand as far as some of the native beliefs being that it's such a mystic, you know, it's a mystic being, you know, some of the things I've heard, I could almost go with, but then it's hard to follow along. You know, I will say that there's been some things connected that really, and again, I want your opinion on this, that really make me wonder is in respect to like orb activity that's been spotted near sightings and different things and aspects. And of course, you know, then there's a whole crew of people that get on the whole UFO thing, which I'm not part of that. I've had a guest on years ago who wrote a book. I still have her book. It's interesting in a lot of ways, but when you start talking about UFOs and that kind of thing, you kind of lose me. Because I tend to think, my opinion means nothing next to a hill of beans and a pile of poop. You know, I myself really tend to think that this has been around for thousands of years, hundreds of years, and it's a humanoid who's intelligent, and they found a way to stay away from everybody else. And they're kings of the forest, man. They're kings of the mountains.
Yeah, that was my initially getting in this. That's where I was. I was in the camp of they've evolved right alongside of us. They've seen us be as self-destructive as we possibly can be. They know how dangerous we are, and that's why they avoid us.
Right. Do you still think along those lines?
I still believe they've been around just as long, if not longer, than we have.
Right.
Now, one of my witnesses that came to me through my research organization, that we then, because it's a very good report we published on the BFRO in Delta County in Michigan, so it's easy to find.
Mm-hmm.
She is actually a medium, and her and I work together on different things because I started to get phone calls and messages about Bigfoot lives under my kitchen sink. And I'm like, no, Bigfoot doesn't live under your kitchen sink. It's probably something else.
Right. Yeah, that'd have to be a big sink.
Right. And just, it runs the gamut. Little people, Dog Man is in there. We had somebody tell us they saw a dragon fly over a cabin. And I said, I need someone else I can reach out to that's in a related field that can take some of these.
Right.
Well, about that same time, she had a Bigfoot experience at a set on some hiking trails at the Days River hiking trails up here. She started to look for somebody to talk to her about Bigfoot. That was 6-7 years ago now. So the two of us have become very good friends. We work back and forth with each other. She considers me part of her organization. I consider her part of mine.
That's cool.
She fully believes that they are interdimensional and can step in and out of our dimension because of the things that she's seen and experienced, and also the things she's seen in her mind's eye.
Right.
I don't have that ability, so I have to bring it back to something that I know, and that's why I'm more in the flesh and blood camp.
Yeah, and who are we to say it couldn't be a little bit of both?
Right. Yeah, and I can't discount what she sees.
Right.
Because I've been with her on some of her investigations and experienced things that I'm like, she can see it, I can't, but I can hear it and I can feel it.
Yeah. So her perception is different than yours. Yeah, that's understandable. Yeah. So it's very understandable. Like I said, I don't know that I put a full pot of water in that, but I'm like you. I'm like, who is to say? I'm the same way with what we do in the paranormal. I have some things I think I understand and some things that I think I know for sure. But when it really comes down to it, I mean, who am I to say? Who's anybody to really say? Because unless we have irrefutable proof sitting on a table in front of us, we're just giving it our best educated guess and trying to do the best we can as investigators to cross the T's and dot the I's. And that's where I was going to go next, with my question in your research. Do you guys have like a witness, almost like a sheet that you take people out and you fill out certain things that you're looking for, like a witness sheet, research sheet?
I used to, and I found that having the witness sheet kind of locked me into where I was into a direction, and I'd try to guide the witness. So I scrapped it. I got rid of the witness sheet, and now I go in and I ask them first how they are. Yeah. How are you? How has this affected you? And from there, then I formulate the rest of my questions. And something I learned it was at another Bigfoot conference that I attended. The guy said, everybody wants to get up and they want to rush the creature. You completely forget about the witness and you just want to know about the creature. He says, don't rush the creature. Take care of your person first. And then they'll tell you everything you need to know about the creature. Right.
That's very wise.
That's kind of the way that I started doing it. That's why I said I scrapped my witness sheet. So
okay. And we do everything. We all do everything digital now, anyways. You can sit there with a digital recorder and record.
Yep.
The witness testimony. I mean, I still have a notepad and stuff on occasion when I do investigations. That's just for my own personal set of mine. But we go through a certain periodical sheet which, when we do private cases, that is. So when I have a private case, I have to ask. I bring my law enforcement and security thing to bear. I tell people, I'm just trying to get to certain things. But you're right. I get to know the person too, and we talk about them personally. And once they become at ease with you, they share a lot more of things. And then you'll find out too, I think when you put people at ease, they remember a lot more clearly.
Right. Yeah, and they'll start talking to you, and they'll be like, all of a sudden you'll see that light go off, and they'll be like, well, 5-6 years ago,
Right.
this happened.
Right.
And you're like, well, that could be directly tied into this. And it gives you that chance to investigate more than just the one incident. You can branch out into all of the incidents they've had.
Correct. And then you can gauge it against other reports, and then, you can find a common ground, in
Right.
looking for this. And you can also gauge it against some things that are similar to where you start to build a profile, for what it is you're looking for. And I do the same thing here in paranormal. But I love what you guys do. I am egging to become part of somebody's organization, even though I look for the ghost. Because as I said early on, when I was young, my mom knew I was interested in this. And I remember telling my mother at a very young age that I was going to become a zoologist, and I was going to go out west, and I was going to find Bigfoot and prove it to everybody that he was real. Because even as a small child, I believed this to be real. There was something in me, maybe like your friend too, that just told me this is a real being. This is a real, it's a person. I know there's been a lot of discussion about primate, and I know the Bigfoot field, they argue amongst themselves just like us ghost people do and the UFO people do. And I love you laughing at that because it's very true. And all we can do is share a laugh, because somewhere in the middle, we're all meeting at that same stop sign. If we can put a lot of things aside, we're all still trying to get to the end of the road, and the same type of thing to find the answers. I was going to ask you too, how many people are in your organization up there?
I have that are people that are actually part of the organization, researchers that I can lean on and send stuff to. There are, I gotta count. So there's Iron River, myself, Curtis, Manastique, Munising. So there's 5 of us across the UP. Then in Lower Michigan, I've got Jackson, Bloomfield Hills, Oscoda, Detroit, and I can never remember where the other guy's at. So there's another 5 down there. I miss a big chunk of the state from Oscoda to the bridge. I don't have anybody. I've got some friends that I can call and talk to, and they'll every once in a while go out, but I can't really lean on them too much. And there's Grasp Paranormal out of Grand Haven, has for the last 2 years come up, and we're doing it again this year. They come up, we take a whole weekend and we Bigfoot together, and we bounce things back and forth off each other.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, you can consider Southern Michigan Paranormals if you'd like, as part of that too. I've interviewed a gentleman down here by the name of Blake. I'm forgetting Blake's last name, and yeah, Blake's an interesting fella, man. I dig him. I really do. I dig him. He's just a laid back guy, and he talks about some of his stuff. But he was on to something that we had down here, which was the Twin Lakes monster. And when I asked you earlier on about misidentification, I don't know that this is a separate species. I really think it's a misidentification. Now, I was friendly with the author who did the book about this. And then, there's been some subsequent information put together on the Twin Lakes monster. Big thing in 63, went huge. 64, we had the National Guard down here because it was like a Jaws movie. And I'm sure you're aware of it. People were running around in trucks with guns, and they were selling sandwiches called the Bigfoot sandwich, all this crazy stuff. And so once I interviewed him, and he showed me a comprehensive map, which is still out there on Amazon, you can get a hold of that map. And listening to the description, where people thought that it looked like it was scaly and it was wet. Well, I have seen, bears and animals come through swamps. Okay. Here's where I'm going with this.
Yep.
So, in a certain set of moonlight or daylight or whatever, if they're going through the swamp and they're covered in a bunch of moss and there's things all over up in their hair, and their hair's mussed and muddied, it can look like they're scales. It really can. I think the way the light's shining, I'm just devil's advocate. I just think it was a misidentification of possibly a creature that has come down this way on occasion.
Yep.
Kalamazoo County has had reports. My uncles used to tell me stories of on the Kalamazoo, Indiana border down by Sturgis, just before you go into Howe, Indiana, in that area.
Yep.
When they used to hunt back in the 50s and 60s as kids, my grandfather, who was a World War II vet, a CB, they would move camp on occasion because they would hear stuff at night that's not normal, screams and yelps, and they would spot tracks. And my grandfather would tell them to get their ass out of there. To have a World War II vet who's usually probably not afraid of too much, to hightail it out there because he's not sure what he's dealing with. I find that interesting. But I find it interesting that you have people working this down here in the lower state too.
Yep.
It's great.
Yeah, they were all good friends of mine. We've all bigfooted together, either through the BFRO or on one of the expeditions. And then they keep in contact and we bounce things off each other. We usually get together a couple times a year.
Good.
One of the guys down there actually owns property now up in the middle of the UP where we kind of get together. So it helps. It's always good to have another set of brains to bounce stuff off of.
Yeah, and
I'm here to say right now, you can count Midwest Parahistoric Society right there along too. But as if you can't tell, I'm a little bit of a fan myself of the big furry fella. So have been since I was little. But I have to ask, what got you started with Bigfoot?
What got me started was when my mom told me that it was something my dad was always looking for.
Yeah.
It was 2 years after he passed, and I was getting that. I kind of feel like I'm getting out of touch with my dad and everything. And it was, well, all right. And I also went from working 3 and 4 jobs to working 1 job 40 hours a week. And I was going stir crazy. So I'm like, I need something to keep my mind going. I'll look into Bigfoot. My dad thought there was something to it, so there must be. And then, like I said, it snowballed from there. It went from, I'll start a Facebook page and I'll get 100 followers, to now I have a Facebook page that has 3,000 followers.
Yeah,
we run the UP Bigfoot conference. That's got another 1,500 followers.
I heard you talking about your dad earlier, and it's like, my God, I have to ask, did he do this in remembrance of his dad's interest and his dad's love alive? And you just pretty much answered my question. Jan just asked, how many parts of the country have there been evidence of Bigfoot?
Everywhere.
Rich is a better one to answer that. Yeah. I mean, I've heard of some weird things in Hawaii, but he's right. Yeah, I've heard that mentioned on a show that every continental state except Hawaii, and I don't think we have an answer for why they have. I mean, they got some mystical creatures that they talk about in Hawaii, but nothing like this at all.
Yeah, they don't have anything big. They've got small things in Hawaii.
Yeah, right. But it's everywhere, and when the Olympic guys were on, to echo them too. And Rich, as well as they do, that it's in most continents, most countries. There's, like I said, there's difference in hair color. There's differences in slight behaviors. There's a lot of good and a lot of bad here. We'll cover a little bit of that before we go to our break here. But, I've seen a lot that seems to be very good evidence, things from police officers, constabularies and stuff that make video. Unfortunately, some of them are what we call potato cameras in the business because, they're dash cams and there's some real old things at the time, but some of it's getting better and better. I mean, to catch a whole family of them, on that Yellowstone camera, what was that, a year or 2 ago, where they're just out there walking among the buffalo, and the buffalo are paying them no mind whatsoever. And you can tell these things are huge because look at the size comparison to, the buffalo, and it's caught on the Eagle cam.
Right.
And I find that fantastic. I mean, I think, again, by catching them off guard by accident would you agree that that's probably a majority of the incidents where people are spotting them?
It is. It's generally a new camera, something that hasn't been up long.
Yeah.
And that I think that comes down to biology, actually.
Yeah.
So earlier today, I tried to explain this to another show. The Drew and Mike show called me while I was at work today.
Okay.
So I talk to them when they call me, but they're always jaded in the more of the they don't believe, and it's kind of a joke to them.
Yeah.
But if you think about the biology of an eye, and you got rods and cones in your eye that let you see a visible light spectrum.
Right.
Bigfoot's eye is bigger. So they either have more rods and cones or bigger rods and cones so they can see further into the light spectrum.
Yeah, they have a marsupial gene which allows them to see better at night. This is
Right.
why they right.
So
I understand that.
Yep. So if they can see into the infrared light spectrum,
Correct.
and they see a camera go off on a tree, it's a big bright thing that's not been there. And then I know that's there. They avoid it because it's new and it's not theirs and it's not natural.
Right, right. And the other thing is they know you're there before you're aware of them. You know, let's
Yep.
just be straightforward, people watching the show or listening down the road. You know, and I often laugh, even finding Bigfoot. I even, my brother told me I need to catch the new version that's out because he had some really cool things on Father's Day to tell me about this new show. But the fact is, it's like I laugh when these guys are going on these trails where there's been incidents. Now, I understand. What I always say, and don't hate me for this, Rich, please don't hate me for this. But what I say to a lot of researchers behind the TV, I'm yelling at the TV. I'm like, listen, you had one incident or two incidents on the same game trail, okay, or the same area. You go to the same area. I can tell you what would be the odds that it's going to cross that same area again. And they're very low. If you're going to bet in Vegas, it's very low that something's going to happen exactly the same to cross the same area. You might as well branch out and look for other areas that you can. Does that make sense? To me, it's like if we're ghost hunting an area and somebody spotted something on the steps, I can work those steps, but I'm not going to continue to work them every time I go there because that random act may not reproduce itself. So what I'm saying is them crossing a game trail by accident, they may not reproduce that, especially if they've seen that they've been spotted, they may not return. I guess that's my point. The other part that I laugh at too, I don't laugh at it, but I'm yelling, is like, you know, they're aware that you're there. You guys are putting game cameras up, and I know they're watching you. I know they're watching you put these devices up on these trees. And again, if they're intelligent, they kind of know you're up to something. And so what do? They avoid that area. And I think you talking about seeing that infrared light on that camera, it's something new. It shouldn't be there. So we're not going to go there.
Yeah, but I've got a witness that's up north of here around Segola. What he had happen is he's a cow farmer. He's got some dairy, he's got some beef. He put up new fence along the cedar swamp. Didn't think anything of it. Middle of the night, hears just a horrible scream. Gets up the next day, and the 6-inch round fence posts that are 8 feet long are pulled straight up out of the ground and all piled up in the middle of the field. It picked up one of the big galvanized watering troughs that are like 3 feet tall.
Yeah.
Had about 8 inches of water in the bottom of it. Picked it straight up out of the bunking, threw it about 30 feet, it landed on a corner and crushed itself.
Good Lord.
Now, the fence posts were straight up out of the ground. They weren't rocked back and forth.
Yeah, just grabbed them and pulled them right up. Yeah.
Yep. It wasn't like something ran into it with a car and drug them out. Every post pulled straight up. So he's like, I don't know. I think it's Bigfoot. Can you come up and take a look? We got over there. We got over there right away, took a look. Jesse actually found footprints that I've got pictures of and handprints in a clay bank that we've got pictures of. And he's like, I said, well, what do you want to do? I said, do you want him to not be around? He's like, I just don't want him as close to my barn and stuff. I said, okay. I said, the biggest way I know to get Bigfoot to stop is put up motion lights and cameras. It usually stops all your activity right away.
Yeah.
He's like, well, why does it stop? I said, I don't know why. I just know it does sometimes.
Yeah, because I think you're onto something. I think that they're aware, they see it, in the night. and they obviously see you putting something up. Again, I think there's this mindless thought that goes on with some of the people that they don't take that into respect, that again, they're intelligent. Maybe they're aware. And I was laughing at the guy calling you up and saying, "Hey, I got these poles pulled up out of the ground," which obviously no human is going to do.
Right.
Is going to be able to do. I think it might be a Bigfoot. Just throwing
So,
that out there. You know, I can only imagine.
Right. So to finish that off, he put up the cameras, he put up the lights. He calls me 3 days later. He's like, "I got 1,000 to 1,200 pictures of nothing." I said, "What do you mean nothing?" So he zipped them all into a file, sent it to me, and I started looking through them. And I didn't notice it at first. I'm like, he's right. He's got pictures of nothing. I started to see streaks that went left to right and right to left through the camera. And then I started to notice in the very background little stone piles. Called him back up and I asked him, I said, "Are you finding rock piles all over your yard?" "Yeah, I'm finding little rock piles, little stacks."
Right.
I said, "Okay." I said, I know what your pictures are." I said, "The streaks through the pictures are sticks and rocks." I said, "The rock piles," I said, "do me a favor." And I said, "What have you been doing with them?" He's like, "I've been kicking them over and they just keep coming back." I said, "Stop kicking them over." I said, "Walk out there." I said, clear a memory card, walk out there, walk on one side of the rock pile, then walk on the other side of the rock pile, and then go look at your pictures. He called me back and he's like, "On the side of the rock pile towards the camera, I got a picture of my feet. On the other side, I got no picture. It didn't even make the camera go off." I said, "They located your cameras. They set up a perimeter where they can walk and not bother the camera."
Right.
Or turn your lights on.
Yeah, they're ranging. They picked out a range and they were that's intelligence, man. Straight up intelligence.
Yeah.
So now when he puts up new fences, he puts neon flags on them. He stands at the edge of the fence and he yells into the swamp, "Hey, there's new fence. I just don't want anybody to get hurt." And he's taken his perimeter and he's moved his cameras. Doesn't even leave memory cards in anymore. Just has the cameras up, lets the batteries die. They set up their perimeter. They don't bother him. He doesn't bother them. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, everybody's living in harmony, man. It's all good.
Now, again, it was asked, is there an explanation? I partially answered this question in the chat because you guys were talking about, moved on to something else. Is there an explanation of the hair color difference and the region? Of course, my answer had to do with camouflage and stuff like that. What is your belief on that?
I think they're just like people. You've got redheads, you've got blondes, you've got brunettes. I think Bigfoots are the same way. Do I think they gray as they get older? Not so much, because I don't hear a lot of stories about gray Bigfoots being in an area after dark-haired Bigfoots have been there for years. You do get some white Bigfoots that you hear about. But just like if you look at people from the U.S. versus people from China, they look a little different.
Yeah, it's a genetic makeup, and they would be no different to it as every other species on the world is the same way. There's different genetics, different things.
Yep.
And as a Yeti, I think that's probably where that question might have been directed. And again, you're the expert guy. I'm not. Rich, you know more about this than me, but I do read into this stuff, and I am into it. So, one of the better guesses, and I'm with Josh Gates on this too, is, being that that's in such an area in the Himalayas where you have snow, maybe that's one of those genetic things that would have adapted to like camouflage, as Drew mentioned, where that makes sense for them because they can hide in the snow. You're not going to see them until you come across them.
Yep.
But we're going to take our first break. I want Rich to stay with us. Everybody hang with us. You'll see us here on video. But those of you listening to this audio adventure Saturday night at 7 p.m. right here on unrestrictedradio.com, tell your friends, your neighbors, go get the app. It's free. I keep telling you people, please listen to me. Unrestrictedradio.com. Download it right now. It's a free app. You can Bluetooth music 24/7 anywhere in the world. We're hooked up with Reverb Nation. We play independent musicians, artists, all sorts of cool stuff. We play music in bands that your local area won't. They can't do it because they got to play the commercial stuff. You can hear this show there. Also, on Saturday nights at 7 p.m., you can hear my show, The Big Dog Show. So if you're all about, hey, boobs, beer in America, tune in. I try to keep it funny. Sometimes I get too serious, but those are some of the things that, I hold dear. I love apple pie, baseball, and Chevrolet. Not so much Chevrolet because I'm a Jeep guy, but you know what I mean? It's the old song. So come on over, check us out. Let's not forget Gun Barrel. You guys see me here in the video pointing at it, Gun Barrel Coffee. You've had the rest, try the best. Gun Barrel Coffee is out of Batavia, Illinois. It's owned and run by veterans. Proceeds of sales go to help veteran organizations all over the world. They're great guys, good coffee. Drew's had the coffee. I've had the coffee. I'm almost out of Battleship. Those of you who like Navy coffee, trust me, Battleship is for you. You could repurpose, take the paint off your fence when you go to repaint your fence. It's that good coffee. And if you use this code, BDOG12, still BDOG, B as in boy, dog12, you'll get a discount on your first purchase. Everybody stay with us here on the Audio Adventures, and we'll be back for more right after this. Oh, we lost Rich. Hopefully we'll get him back. Those of you watching, hang with us. We have more to come. Here he is. There's Rich.
I don't know what happened.
It's paranormal, man.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. You're with us on Unrestricted Paranormal. I will tell you that the network is being built as we speak. I was hoping to have it up this week. I've had to postpone that a little bit. I ran into some issues putting video and some different things together over there. I did put up a temporary, I sent that to Drew today. I put up a temporary URL so that you can go see the free site as it stands. So you will hear this podcast on the front page. And then once we get this edited and put together, you guys can go over to the audio page, or this video page rather, and you'll see this. You can see this again. You can watch it to your delight over and over. I don't know why you'd want to watch it over and over, but you got three handsome guys here.
Because we're damn interesting.
Damn right. And we're damn good looking. So what else do you need here? My guest is Rich MEYER, and he is a Bigfoot hunter extraordinaire, and I am loving this interview. I don't know if I'm throwing all the great questions or the classic questions to him, but you know how we are on this show. We fly off by the handle, and we just ask what we're feeling. I could ask him, what color is this Jeep?
Black, red accents. My 7-year-old took over creative talent on this.
I dig it. Yeah, mine's an Ecto. Of course, you've seen my stuff. Mine's an Ecto Jeep. Let's get back into it. So, we were talking about, all over the world genetics and stuff, and you've talked about a couple of the cases that you've worked up there. What have been some of the most compelling, I guess, eyewitness accounts? I haven't been drinking. I swear to God, guys, it's orange juice. That's all that's in here. What's your most compelling eyewitness account that you've come across in the UP so far?
So my farmer that farmer account, it's not, I don't have anything recorded anywhere. Because he asked me specifically, he's like, I don't want a bunch of people showing up in my yard. He says, can we not report this anyplace? I said, right. As long as you'll let me talk about it, I'll never use your name, and I'll never give an exact location.
Yeah. So we've done the same. Yep.
Yep. I said that is probably one of the most compelling I've researched. Tammy's, that's actually on the BFRO website. That one is very compelling as well. There was a road crossing just south of Escanaba. The couple were in separate cars, passed by something in a ditch that stood up. And when they got home, looked at each other and said, did you see what was on the side of the road? Two separate witnesses, two separate cars. It's kind of hard to shake a stick at that one and go, no. That's just a bear.
Right. And I had seen her hunting Bigfoot, when I went on about that case of that lady who was driving the tracker up there on that stretch of road you guys have. And she ended up seeing something either run across the road or something. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I think so.
Yeah, she was coming home late in the afternoon. I remember she drove a tracker because I love the fact that the tracker was the same color as what we had back in the day.
Yep.
But I did the clap and did the whole fists up thing, everybody, because what he just described with the two people in the car, Drew has heard this story before, so he'll probably fall asleep. One of my incidents is, Rich, I wanted to share with you, and I said I would here in the show. And I think I've reported one to the BFRO. It should be on record. The other one, probably, I don't think I have, but I'm letting you know here on the program. So here's what took place. So I want to say late fall of about 2011, 2012. My buddy Bob had already shared his experience with me in the same area, same road. I kid you not. So I'm farther north on Silver Lake Road. So if anybody looks it up on their map, you'll see Silver Lake Road, which is south of Vicksburg going into Mendon. And there's a highway that goes through called M60. It's a very old highway. I'm coming off M60 because I had spent the night at an event in Burr Oak, Michigan. We'd done a ghost hunt, and I was coming home. And I'm coming home about 8:30 or so in the morning. Sun's up. I take a turn onto Silver Lake, and as I look to my left, something catches my eye, because some of the farms and the cornfields down here, they'll do a patch, and then there'll be a small patch behind it, and there's a big row of trees, and then they'll do the other side, which is another full area that they plant. And then behind that in the back, there's a row of trees. So what you're looking at is a T formation, but there's a gap in between. So there's a row of trees here, and there's a row of trees coming from the road that I just turned on all the way back there. And there's probably, I don't know, maybe a 2-lane highway gap, where they've planted corn in that little section too, to continue to the next field. So now that I've outlined that, as I'm making my turn, I happen to look because something is moving and catches my eye. So at the end of that lower piece of woods, Rich, I see this humongous black thing, this huge black person. And I mean, it's big. And I can tell by, distancing, using my thumb and everything else, as far away as it was, I mean, it had to be 8-9 foot tall. And there's nobody going to be out there this time of day. It was, I think we were having a warm fall, and it had to be 67, 70 degrees. A dude's not going to be out there in a full fur black coat on the odds that I'm going to drive by. Okay. Let's just say it out loud. I don't think it's phony. I slowed down enough that when I was making my turn, I wasn't paying attention to the road, and I saw this thing swaying, and I could see it looking in my direction, and I could almost see kind of a lower piece of the face was real dark. And I was looking so intently that I looked to catch the road because I didn't want to run into somebody. And I noticed I'm on the other side of the lane. Thank God nobody was coming. And so I had to correct my steering, and I did a double take. And when I looked back the second time, it was kind of moving, like swaying to the left. And I went down a short distance. I swung the car around, my Ecto. I swung it around. I got to the point where I could see down there again. I jumped out of the driver's side and went down in the ditch and got up in part of the cornfield, probably about 10 feet. And as I look down there, it's gone. And I'm not going to trespass because the guy lives across the street, and I pulled in one time to check something in my car, and he was a little itchy about that. I'm not saying he's rude. He's just weird. So I don't know what I saw. I don't know what I saw, but I will tell you that it was bigger than a human, totally black, and it was standing at the edge of these trees. And what is funny is it's in the same area that Bob had his incident, and right down the road, literally a quarter mile to the measurement, there is a big river that runs through there. I fished it quite a few times. Did this summer already. I've been in there and fished. There's food sources. There's a ton of food sources around. So there's my report. Okay.
Yep.
I think that county is St. Joe. I think that's St. Joe County once you get north of Vicksburg, but weird. And then a few years later, as you mentioned, the ditch and seeing something in the ditch, we have a stretch of road here from Kalamazoo that goes to Paw Paw and goes to Lawton. Drew's been on it, I'm sure, many times. And in between, just as you pass Paw Paw, just before you come to a city called Lawrence, there's a pond. And I know that pond is very deep. It's literally a few feet off the highway, off of 94. And as we were driving one afternoon to come out to the Van Buren Poorhouse Museum, crazy coincidence. I'm in the passenger seat and I spotted something in the pond, and so did the driver, who used to be my partner at the time. And as we both turned and looked, the cars in front of us had slowed down enough because they saw it too. They were all looking, and we went from about 55 down to probably about 30 to 20. And we pulled over slightly and we were still moving. And as I'm looking and he's looking over and trying to do this not to run into people, I saw a large reddish colored, like tan reddish, like fur. And it was a size, it was shaped like a human, but I would say that, like you said, linebacker, it had shoulders that were wider than a couple trees. I mean, this thing was massive. Its back was to us. I could see it's up to its waist in this pond, which makes this interesting to me. Is in a matter of seconds, I'm witnessing all this. I'm taking it in. I can see in the lichen, there was some lichen that was sitting on parts of the pond that hadn't been disturbed, but you could see where he had come in. It was disturbed. And then right where he was standing at his waist, I could see his arms, the back of his arms, and he was moving. And he had, you could tell they're in front of him, and he's doing something. And he doesn't turn around, and I'm spotting this, and my buddy's like, "That's not a damn deer," because I know a deer. I've never seen a deer in a pond or water. And other people were slowing down, and so we got around the car in front of us, and then they took off. We went up to the police turnaround, came back, went back to the other one, and then came up because I wanted to see what was out there. And by the time we got back, this probably took about 10, 15 minutes. By the time we got back up there and we pulled off the road and I jumped the guardrail, the farm guy has one of those wire fences so people can't trespass down in the pond. I see now that there's a wake where the lichen has been disturbed and he's gone off in a deeper part of the direction of the pond, and there's just dense trees. It is, I can point it out to people to this day. I look at it every time I drive by. I look at it. He's gone. He's gone. So again, I'm not telling you that I saw something, but I and other people reported this. It even made our news at a short time. Some people reported it to local AM radio in Kalamazoo. So I told him, like, man, I'm not saying I saw a Bigfoot, but this is broad daylight. And I, as a guy who looks into this, not like you do, but you look into it, that's rare. I've heard of people having those run-ins, but broad daylight, man, like it was fishing.
Yeah.
Like it's out there eating and fishing. It was just weird. And I remember having butterflies, and I was so excited because that's as close as I've ever been to seeing something odd like that. So I'll leave it there. I didn't mean to take up that whole part of the show, but I swear by my experience, man.
Yeah, no, that's the kind of experience I like to hear about. I mean, you said it wasn't just you, it was you and the driver.
Mm-hmm.
It was all of the other cars that stopped to see it. So that means it wasn't one car that saw it. It wasn't one car that could have had an exhaust leak with carbon monoxide coming in.
Yeah, we're seeing weird things, right?
I mean, we're taking out a bunch of variables where people would say, "Oh, it was this or it was that,"
right? When
it's more than one vehicle. So, no, I love to hear those experiences.
Yeah, and I'm with you too. Go ahead, Drew.
Are you familiar, Rich? I mean, I'm sure you are, with the sightings that occur between September and mid-November in the area of Manistee State Forest. Police reports, news reports. What do you think is the reason? Because I mean, I've developed my own theory, but I want to hear yours because you're much deeper into it than I am. Why you don't see or hear of these sightings January, February, March. You hear of them in that 2-month period only, when people are calling the police and calling the news and calling, I saw this, we heard this was in my yard, I got this on my trail cam. Why only those 2 months?
This is a softball question for me. We have 1.5 million people that go into the woods between September and January 1st with guns and bows. They start small game hunting in mid-September, and small game, deer, bear, and then archery, muzzleloader, all that for deer, all the way through January 1st. You've got to have 2 things for a Bigfoot sighting. Well, three. You've got to have a Bigfoot, you've got to have a person, and you've got to have a person that reports it. And if you're out there, if you spend the other 9 months of the year bottled up in your house, and then you go out and start hunting, and you think that maybe this big guy wasn't a Bigfoot, he was just a big guy that's encroaching on your hunting ground, you're going to report it to somebody. And then when you start to report it and you start to go, well, I don't know many 8-foot tall people.
Yeah.
Maybe that wasn't a guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got quite an expensive fur coat.
Yeah, it's the sheer amount of people in the woods at those times of year. That's why we hear about them more often.
Right. And I find it interesting too. That's a great question, Drew. Thank you. I find it interesting too. Native reports is again, they touch on the mysticism aspect, but then there's others too that believe that it, like I do, that it's this being. It deserves respect. I think it needs to be protected. I'm one of these guys, because I'm going to bring up the whole shoot thing.
Yep.
I don't agree with that. I mean, there's something to be said for it because, but I try to put myself in, let's say, Bigfoot's place, and I'm going to make it comical for a minute. So they're like, hey man, I saw this thing. I'm not sure what it was. It was driving this box. It had these round things. It was driving around. And of course the other Bigfoot don't believe them. So what I'm saying is Bigfoot has spotted you, but when he goes back to camp to tell the other Bigfoot, they're like, "What? You're full of crap. There's nobody like that running around. It's not a real thing." So what I'm doing here is I'm saying that, well, if we go out and capture one and we kill it, then we'll know for sure that these humanoids that we're seeing out here that run around with strange things on their backs and they look different from us, they're real. Does that make sense? So I've never agreed with that. I don't think that we have to have that. I think we've gotten plenty. Listen to me here. And I wanted to argue with Jeff Meldrum on some points and some different things. And I play nice in the sandbox because I respect him because he's on my bucket list. But doesn't mean I have to agree with everything that, my heroes are about or other people are about. And my thought process is on that. It's like, listen, man, we have enough hair samples that are similar but unknown. We have enough dropping samples that are similar but unknown. The footprints alone that we can discount as obviously being phonies, but the real deal, what's the Skookum print? I mean, it's got ridges in it. We've had handprints on cars, like you said, and all this other stuff. I have to ask myself, does science want an answer? Or do they just want to continue to play games? Because to say that we have air and we breathe oxygen and other things, and there's ways that you can show it and ways that you don't, doesn't make it true that it doesn't exist because you can't quite see it. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
You actually just brought up a really good point, Danny, because I just watched a show yesterday. They were talking about having fecal samples that they knew were from a Bigfoot, and they took it to a lab, they analyzed it, and I'm just gonna say it like it is, each pile of shit that is produced out there by whatever creature has got a certain bacteria in it. Right. And when they analyzed this, they could not identify that bacteria that was in that fecal matter. Yeah. We go back a few more years, you've got the guys in the cabin up in Canada that put the board of nails on their front porch because the cabin kept getting broke into.
Yeah.
They could not identify the DNA in the blood and the tissue samples found on those nails.
That's my point. It's similar. Well, it's similar to human beings. Well, duh, that's our point. I think that's our whole point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Am I wrong, Rich?
You're not wrong. What I have people ask me all the time, they're like, a lot of people refer to me as a Bigfoot hunter. I'm a Bigfoot researcher. I don't go out to hunt them. And before I get too far on this, somebody I saw a chat pop up, asked if Bigfoot and Sasquatch are the same. Yes, it's interchangeable terms. So that'll answer that question for chat, so you guys don't have to worry about it. But I think it's going to take a body to get science to acknowledge it.
Sure, we're sure.
I'm not going to be the one that brings in that body.
Yeah. I'm not.
I'm going to continue to collect footprints, hair samples. If I find fecal matter, I'll collect that. But I'm not going to bring in the body. I'm not going to take somebody out there to bring in the body.
I have so many questions. I guess I'll address this one first. Everybody thinks that they're such docile creatures that live in harmony out there, and I'm not a believer in that. I think there's a majority that this is the way that they live, but again, there's been reports, and there's been very historic reports that may not be might not be the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Do you feel that way too?
I think they're like anything else. If I corner you, you're eventually going to push back.
Right. Exactly. And as far as being like alpha aggressive, yeah, with territory and stuff, like you said, when they were ranging his cameras, I always think of cultures like I for some reason, Zulu came to mind, where they would send guys out to get shot at a certain distance, and they're ranging the enemy's guns.
Yeah.
So they're doing the same thing because they don't want to be seen. They don't want to be tracked, and like you said, I'm not going to be the guy to go out there to grab one either, but I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take, but I've heard that there's been some aggressive things that have happened. And as I said, you don't know if there's a young one nearby. You don't know if you're intruding on territory that's been theirs for hundreds of years. And they're just trying to tell you through tree knocks and rock throwing that you're not to be there. They do not want you in there.
Yep.
I don't know. Am I making sense with that too? Did I understand
all
of it right?
That's the way that I understand it as well. It's
All right.
The knocks. The knocks could be locating. I was actually here in my driveway, had all my Bigfoot stuff sitting next to me in a tote as we were moving into the house when we bought it 10 years ago. And I'm standing in the driveway, and across the ridge that's across the road from the house, I heard knock, 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 knock. And it was I was locating it as they were moving. And I'm standing there going, that sounds like two Bigfoots knocking back and forth. And I stood there and listened for probably 15 minutes. Then I went, I should have picked up that recorder and recorded that.
Yeah. We just had that talk the other night, Rich. We were talking about when we first had one of our amazing K2 responses. And those of you who don't know, K2 is an EMF meter. And we were having like a 15-minute conversation with what seemed to be this family who had a doctor's office here in Kalamazoo. And it was amazing, right? And the same thing. One of our guys walked up and said, "Is anybody filming this?" Nobody was recording it. Nobody's filming it. And I'm the leader of this group, and I'm going, oh, no. Yep. So now I try to pay more attention to that, but it happens, man. It happens. Because you're wrapped up in the moment,
Yeah, and that's when I go out to investigate, or when I just go for a walk in the woods, I always take a recorder with me. And something that Jim Sherman taught me very early on when I started researching Bigfoot is never get out of the vehicle until your recorder is running.
Right.
So had I been somewhere to research, I'd have had that recorder going when I jumped out.
Right.
I was at home. I was standing in my garage getting ready to unpack some stuff from the move. It just happened.
It just happened. That's excellent. The other thing I wanted to bring up about this too, we've talked about the shoot thing, and what do you think is one of the better shows that maybe, because listen, there's a lot of entertainment attached. I've known people in the industry that do some of the ghost shows. I've met them. I'm friends with John Tenney and different people in Michigan that have had their own stuff going on. Not to call anybody out, but I mean, do you think that they're giving it a good go on some of the Bigfoot shows that you've seen in recent years?
If you can wade through the entertainment part, you can pick up a lot of good tips and tricks.
Yeah.
The problem is you have to remember they're making a TV show.
Correct.
So they have to keep it entertaining. They have to make it suspenseful, and they may film it 100% just the way they would always go out and attack in the woods. But when it gets to the editor, he's going to chop it up however he wants.
That's correct.
So I can't say any of them are great. I can't say any of them are bad. I have respect for a lot of the people that have been on them as far as both investigators and as witnesses.
Right. I guess maybe I need to start changing my thing when I talk about the ghost shows, but I'm a little jaded. due to some certain things. But the other thing I would ask too, we've yeah, there's somebody else over there. The other part I would ask too, do you go out? Here's me. I'm just going to speak for myself. So everybody, don't send me hate mail. Okay. Bigfoot people, don't send me hate mail. If I'm to go on one of these expeditions or I'm out there looking around, I'm wearing my pistol. I'm a Second Amendment guy. I'm wearing my gun. And I want to explain my reasoning. I don't know what it's going to do. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just preparing myself because there's other animals I can run into too out there without, like we just talked about bears. Okay. But Sasquatch too, as much as I want to love the big furry guy, I don't know what could happen. And of course, knowing my luck too, Rich, it's going to be Dan who finds out that he's aggressive and he's going to rip my arms off and beat my head, into a pulp with my wet arms. So I guess the point I'm making is I respect guys who go out who are armed, and I'm good with people that don't too, but I would take precautions. I'm just saying if I'm on one of these, I'm wearing. That's all I'm saying.
It's not that. Here's the way I look at it. I hunted and fished from the time I was 5 all the way through, well, let's see, 2011 would have been 11 years ago. So I'd have been 34 when I started to research Bigfoot. Up until that point, if I was out fishing, I didn't have a gun on me. If I was out hunting, yeah, I did.
Right.
I haven't changed anything I've ever done. I will still go into the woods if I'm fishing without a gun, but I'm Bigfoot researching at the same time. I might be doing more Bigfoot researching than fishing because I have what we say a friend of mine has, which is trail ADHD. You'll be walking along. Oh, what's that?
Yeah, shiny object in the woods.
You're nowhere near the creek. You still got your fishing pole in your hand.
Right. And that's understandable. Like I said, I ain't dissing on anybody who does not, carry or whatever. But I'm just thinking, for me, I'm going to do that. I saw a show. Well, I think it was Hunting Bigfoot, where that park ranger had encountered something out there in the Northwest, and he went back out with his gun, but he wasn't going to shoot anything, but he shot in the air because they had head-sized boulders being tossed at him, and it actually scared the shit out of the reporter. Have you guys encountered any rock throwing or anything when you've been out?
I've had rock throwing happen.
Yeah.
And I think they're a good enough aim. If they wanted to hit you, you wouldn't know that they were throwing them at you.
Right, because they hit everything that they want to. I agree with you on that. Yeah.
I think it'd be too late if you got hit with one. So, and what we've typically done in the past when we've had rock throwing incidents is we'll back off a little bit, see if we still have rock throwing incidents, and continue to look and listen and see what we can find. That's, I guess, back to your question about the Bigfoot shows. I have people send me messages all the time because I've got a TikTok that's the same. It's UPBFRO.
Yeah, I follow you on there. Yes.
Yep. And they keep asking me, why don't you do a Bigfoot TikTok? I'm like, all you're going to see is a black screen.
Yeah, you're out there.
I'm out in the middle of the woods. There's no street lights, and if the moon's not out, you're not going to see anything. It's going to be a black screen for 3 minutes.
Do you guys have use of a FLIR? Because I know we just obtained one where my buddy, it's a deal that hooks into his phone. It's an actual FLIR camera. Do you guys use some of that stuff?
I have a handheld thermal that will emit its own Wi-Fi, so you can hook to it with a cell phone. So I can look through the thermal, and you can be looking at your phone.
Well, there's your TikTok. There you go. Yeah. I just helped you.
Yep.
Not that you needed my help. I'm just saying.
Well, that was one of my thoughts, that I could do that.
There you go, man.
I've also got a night vision, and I've gotten pretty good at holding the phone to the back of my night vision so that you can see through the night vision with the phone. So.
I'm laughing, folks, because we've done the same thing. It looks like we're doing shared secrets here, secrets of the business.
Yeah. There's so much crossover between Bigfoot research and paranormal, but nobody wants to actually agree to that and say, yeah, there is.
I do. I agree to it.
We used a lot of the same equipment.
Right. And I will tell you that I agree with that because everything paranormal is not just ghosts, man. It's anything that's out of the normal, if I'm going
Right.
to break down the words. So I'm into UFOs too, but that's a whole other show.
Well, and you find a lot of paranormal investigators that are into cryptids and into
Yeah.
UFOs and everything else. And it's like, it all just, I mean, supernatural, anything that is beyond natural.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
So do you have anything,
makes sense.
that's coming up soon that you guys are planning?
We have, let's see, August 13th is the UP Bigfoot Conference. We hold that over in St. Ignace, so it's kind of centrally located in Michigan, so people from lower Michigan can come up. People from the other end of the UP can come over. So we've got the Facebook page for it that's dedicated just to that. September 9th is the weekend that I'll be in the woods with Grasp when they come up this year. So we usually have some empty spots in the campground that we can get some other people in, because we tend to go from the campground right into the woods, and then we make some noise and be interesting and see if anything follows us back to the campground.
Right. And then you'll see if you're featured on a movie of the week, if anything goes south.
Yeah, if things go south. And
yeah. Say, well, I knew Rich. He was a good guy.
Yep. And then I've got something that we've been working on for about 5 years that actually started into fruition this year. Is we just started a Facebook page for the Midwest Bigfoot. I got to make sure I say this right. The Midwest Bigfoot Experience Museum.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yep. I'm taking all of the stuff that I have and things that have been donated to me. We're going to build a museum that's basically in my front yard. It will be completely off grid, so it'll run on its own. It's going to be run by donation and grant. The idea behind it is to foster the kids that are going into a scientific field that's related to cryptozoology and paranormal.
That's a great idea. And I saw your GoFundMe thing that you put up about that too. So we'll make sure we try to link some of that over here on the network when that's up and going, plus here on the YouTube channel.
Yep.
The St. Ignace thing has got my interest. I'm all over the place in July, so it'd be something to try to make it happen, and I'm sure it's on a weekend.
Yep, it is.
You guys operate like
a Saturday,
right? Yep. We try to do everything on weekends so more people can show up.
More people can show up, and I'm not at work then.
That's correct. And St. Ignace is a wonderful town. Yes, sir.
Have you thought about inviting Rich and some of his people down to Ghostorama?
We can invite him right now.
I think you sent me information on it.
I did. I sent him some info on it. Yep. So if you can make it down August 20th, we've had to change the venue. So I'm going to announce it right here towards the end of the show here, everybody. So listen closely. So Van Buren Courthouse Museum, has our prayer. They have our thoughts because it's going to be a while for the rebuild. Good thing is they're going to save the building and it's going to continue. So I'm happy for them. I want, Sue to understand that we didn't abandon them. It's just that we had to have a place to do the venue. We can't do it there. So we have changed the venue. We're still going August 20th. Still same time. Everything that was planned for the event is still going to happen. Car show, Comic-Con people, Ghostbusters, and if Rich comes down, some Bigfoot folks. I don't know if he's going to make it down. I hope.
I'm gonna look into it. It's the week after ours, so it's a tight timeline.
Well, I'll tell you, if you come down, you'll be our special guest. Drew and I will take care of you. I promise. And love to have you talk to the people too. We want to offer a little bit of that. Why paranormal groups are there. It's a paranormal meet and greet. Folks, it's going to be at the Paw Paw Playhouse. It's on West Michigan Avenue in Paw Paw, Michigan, not East-West Michigan. Google has it wrong. So it's West Michigan Avenue, Paw Paw, Michigan. Look it up. It's called the Paw Paw Playhouse. It's a historic church that's been in town there for well over 100 years. And we're going to do an after-hours ghost hunt. I just talked to the young man who owns it tonight. He is just an extraordinary guy. His name is Jason. Young couple, they bought it. They plan on doing a lot of wonderful things. So we got things happening. So you heard it here tonight. We're still a go. Ghostorama is still happening. Vendors, It's still happening. Most of you have been kind enough to share the address and the new information. We're still doing our thing. We're going to raise $1 for the venue, and we're going to raise $1 for yours truly. I got a partner in this who does Frankenfest in this Saturday. We're June 25th. We're in Lansing, Michigan at the Turner Dodge House. This is our second year. And then we're also doing one in September. I think, what the hell's the date on that? 19th or something. We're doing one at Fort Wayne in Detroit. And so we have entertainment. It's much the same. Frankenfest is much the same. Entertainment, paranormal people, people selling, mittens made for kittens, stained glass vaginas. I kid you not, that is a real thing. There's a lady selling those. I don't know what's going on with that, but it's a thing. And it's just a good time. So Rich, if you make it down to at least Ghost-O-Rama, I definitely would love that. And as far as you guys, getting together and doing stuff, like I said, Blake does a lot of stuff down here in Allegan County.
Yep.
I'd like to get together with some of you guys and have us come out on a squatch hunt. I love to camp. I love the woods. I'll put on as much DEET as I need to make sure that I'm not carried away by 10-foot mosquitoes. And I'd love to be part of that, buddy.
Yep. That's why I said September, October are real good times to get out there. Black flies are gone. The mosquitoes are at their end. Little cooler temps.
Yes.
For some of us that are chubby and don't like to be out in the heat.
That's me. And the other part of that is you can actually sit by the fire and get warm and not lose 20 pounds.
Right.
So by all means, throw us an invite, man. Throw us an invite for sure. We'll
anytime you guys want to go, if you pick a weekend and give me some advance notice, I can schedule things at work to make it around it so we can get out there to just go for a day or 2 days. You're most likely not going to experience something. You want to have 3 to 4 days in the woods. So.
Well, here's my invite too. Whatever you have going on that you do live, anything with your group, when you guys are doing, your stuff in St. Ignace and the other place, by all means, if you connect with us on our network, my network, once it's up and running, it's going to be unrestrictedparanormal.com. I do have that domain. I just got to get the website connected. It'll be up and running by the time you guys do your events. Let me know, because I'd love to carry any of your media to help network a friend who's doing, the cryptid part of the paranormal. And I believe in what you're doing, man. You're doing a lot of good work up there. And I'm glad I finally got to meet you and talk to you. A lot of that's me. I blame myself. But
it's both of us. We both have hectic schedules. And
well, you were changing jobs a lot too, I think, when we first were talking.
Yeah, I was going from one job to another. Well, when we first started talking, I was going from one position to another, and then I went from one job to another. So
it happens. But let's stay in touch, man.
Yeah,
for sure. And where can everybody find you? Give them all your information.
The easiest way to find me is through Facebook at facebook.com UPBFRO, or just type into Google Upper Peninsula Bigfoot. I usually pop up first or second one on the list.
Yep.
The next Facebook page is the Upper Peninsula Bigfoot Conference. You can type just UP Bigfoot Conference in. It'll pop up on Facebook. And then our Midwest Bigfoot Experience Museum is that last one.
Yeah, folks, donate and help. When I get in a place with some money, my friend, you will get a donation from SMP. In the name of SMP, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if we're officially a 501c3 yet, but I filed for it. That makes anything that's donated a tax write-off for you. So it's a nonprofit designation through the IRS is what it is.
Yeah. For me personally, I don't give a patoot. I'm just going to give you the money because I want you to do your thing, man, because I operate a Ghostbuster coalition that we're not for profit, but we're not 501. There's a whole headache attached to that. But
I've been dealing with that headache since January, and I think our paperwork's finally getting through.
Oh yeah. You go to print it out and it's like a Bible. It's that thick. And so we won't go into that. But Rich, thanks for taking the time out to be on the show with me and Drew, and we really appreciate it, man, so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I enjoyed being on it. If you guys ever have questions, just reach out and ask.
I'm
So,
going to have
our
you back on to be like the third co-host, and we'll have some other people on, and we'll just have some fun, shoot the
Yeah.
shit, and talk paranormal, man.
Yep, yeah, we can do that.
UFOs, Bigfoot. One last thing, one last question. So I got a bit of a disagreement. Some people, one person agreed with me on the program, others, had a difference of opinion. Do you think that they're migratory? That's my big question, because I myself think that's a possibility, because there are trails. I think that you guys have done enough research. You've shown migratory trails, some of you researchers. But what do you think? You think that's true? They go where the food is, depending on the weather conditions, or they stay in their own area?
That I think they chase their food, and
Yep.
the reason that I go with that is mid November into December. If you go to the northern side of the UP and get out of our banana belt down here on the southern end, you will see trails that look like cow trails beat into the snow, and it's deer trails is what it is, because the deer migrate up there from
Yeah.
they migrate from the Superior Shore down to the center of the UP to get out of some of the snow and to get to the grazing land.
Right.
I think the Bigfoots follow them. I think no matter where you go, the Bigfoots follow them. Think about the caloric intake that something that size would have to have.
Right.
If-
And I don't know if I'm buying the whole vegan thing. Just
Right.
going to throw that in there. I think they're meat eaters too.
I think they're opportunistic eaters. I think they'll eat anything that they can eat.
Very well said. Very well said. And I appreciate, you answering that very earnestly. And I'm with you too, because if you're going to think about ancient, Neolithic culture or Native Americans, living the way that they lived in the day, they did the same thing. They would live in certain areas, but they would move around portions of Michigan depending on where the food sources were more abundant. Not all the time, but some of them did it.
Yep.
We know that for a fact, and I can't see this species doing anything different.
Right.
What's the one last thing you have to say about squatching, man?
I never thought I would get to the point where I am now. I thought it was going to be something to keep my mind busy and it'd be just something to pass the time here and there. I never thought I would get to the point where I have as many followers as I do on Facebook. And that's the conference that I do is for all of the people that follow me. Everybody says, oh, well, you must make, I don't make anything on the conference. The last 2 years, I almost bankrupt myself.
I hear you.
But it wasn't for me. It was for the people that reach out and ask questions.
Right.
That want to meet other people that are like-minded.
Right. It's for the field, man. And I've
Yep.
done the same thing with my Paracons I've put on, and probably do the same thing with Ghost-orama. We're going to be nice to the venue, but I'm not there to make a buck on this. It's
Yep.
nice that if I make $1, but I'm doing it for the people. Hey,
Yep.
I will let everybody know, last thing, why Rich is still here with us, that I have, Drew has seen it, I have Squatch on my wife's Jeep. I have them on each side of her Jeep, little Squatch decals, because we're believers. And then I also have a big one on the back that he is the world's best hide and seek
hide and seek champion.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's exactly. And then mine's got
greatest hide and seek champion.
Yep, and mine's got a roll of toilet paper in his hand too, just to make it a little more funny. But I got another Squatch one on the other side, which supports what you do. So, hey, everybody, support Rich. Get in touch with him. You heard his information. I want to thank you for joining us on Unrestricted Paranormal. I want to thank Drew, as always, for being here. And Rich, thanks, man. Appreciate taking the time out. Have yourself a wonderful night and a great weekend.
Don't forget to send us an invitation to your
yes
hunt.
Yep.
Yes, please.
I'll send you all the info on it, where we're going to be, so you guys can decide if you want to come up or not. And it's when I do stuff like that with other groups, I don't ever charge anybody in another group, because I want to share information back and forth with everybody that's open. When somebody contacts me and says, hey, I want you to teach me how to Bigfoot, then we discuss a fee. But when it's another group, it's you take care of yourself, make sure you bring some food, I'll bring some food, and this is where I'm camping at.
Yeah, make sure you bring blankets too.
Yeah.
Okay? Lots of
Yeah,
blankets.
yeah.
That's a whole other story. Okay, Rich, thanks for being with us, everybody. I'm going to leave you with these words, as I do as I end every show. If you cannot be kinder and smarter out there, please be quieter. Okay? just do me a favor, be quieter.